Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for calling into this, which is the BCO's first online webinar. My name is Gillian Stewart. If you don't know me, I'm the chair of the BCO committee in Scotland, and I'm delighted to be able to chair this event, as the Scottish committee as a whole have been concerned about the lack of our ability to connect with the members during this coronavirus event. And we're delighted that we've been able to get this set up. This will be the first of a number of online events that we have planned over the next month or so. We did have quite a lot of events, as you'll know, in April planned, and research events in May planned, which have all been shelved, but we're trying to put these online. Thank you so much for the questions that you've asked so far. We will address them at the end. And today I'm joined by an esteemed panel of experts, many of them you'll know, to discuss surviving, moving forward and thriving and surviving life during and after the coronavirus experience. So today we have Robin Blacklock. Rob is a property developer, and in his spare time he's the chair of the SPF. We've got Sarah Hagan. Sarah's an associate agent from Knight Frank in Glasgow. We've got Stephen Lewis, who's a developer and managing director of the HFD Property Group, and Stephen's also a committee member with me. Angela Lowe is a senior director with CBRE. She's also an agent. She's based in Edinburgh, and Angela's also on the committee. And Andy McBain, who is head of choice and design at RBS, and he's the one kind of end user client that we have on the panel today, and he's also a committee member and has been active in the BCO for many years. I've had a wee bit of time to think about this, and I would like the panel to consider the possible effects of the current coronavirus outbreak will have on our business in short, medium and longer terms. And just to kind of sow some seeds, I would like the panel to consider, the immediate return to work. How will we get back to work? What will that look like? There's lots of articles and recommendations out there about maintaining social distancing, increasing cleaning, de-densifying space planning, and prescribed circulation patterns in offices, which I think we have a townhouse in Edinburgh. We only have one stair, so I think we'll need to get a fireman's pole for exiting the building down the centre of the stairwell, if that's the case. But anyway, there's lots of stuff out there about that. But in the medium term, how will the workplace change? How will we behave change? We've seen necessity is the mother of invention. There were 65 million downloads globally of VC conferencing software in March. So everybody's now much more agile and spread out, and how can we reap the benefits of that when we go back? Thinking about sustainability and the use of energy, the benefits of reduced travel, the cost of travel, the reduced use of energy to heat and cool buildings now. Will the current situation help us to reach our zero carbon targets sooner? And for me, well-being and sociability is really important. The BBC Scottish News, I think, last week reported that the NHS estimate that maybe 50% of the population are suffering some sort of anxiety or depression as a result of this enforced change to our normal kind of daily activities. Personally, I miss my team. I miss our banter. And I missed the design debate. And while VC is really good at helping that continue, there's nothing beats the face-to-face and the kind of sensory side of what we do. And I believe that this will give the workplace a stronger purpose within organisations in the future. And I suppose finally, the economic impact, which is the scary stuff. The Fraser of Allender Institute published a report in March, and it's online if you fancy downloading it and taking a look. It's sobering reading, and they predict that if this situation goes on for 3 months, then Scotland's GDP could fall between 20 and 25%, and that's a big hit. And finally, for me, how can we learn from this? How can we learn as an industry, as a community, and as a nation? And how can we behave better, respect each other better, and respect the environment better? And just generally, we have to be positive and get some positive learnings out of this. So I hope that's all okay with everyone, and I'm going to invite Robin to talk first. As I said, he's a property developer, but he also is the chair of the SPF. Thank you.
Thanks, Gillian. I think from my perspective, it's probably useful to outline Scottish Property Federation, and in terms of who we are, what we do and how we go about it, to put into context how we've been dealing with the COVID crisis. And the Scottish Property Federation really is it's a member organisation representing investors and landlords, developers, occupiers, and all the professional services firms and the like that are associated with that. What we do is we engage with local and national government, and through the British Property Federation, through UK government, and we educate and inform in order to try and influence policies and strategies affecting the real estate industry. How we do that is that, very simply, we listen, we learn, and we then engage. And we listen and learn to what government want to achieve. We listen and learn to what industry wants to go about and what the challenges are. And then we try and find the way to ensure that the real estate industry is given the best platform possible to progress. And really, that's how we've dealt with the coronavirus crisis. I mean, in the first week or so, there was so much coming through from government around legislation, issues around whether sites should be opening or closing. There's been a huge debate about whether tenants should still be paying rent. And then there was the bill that came ahead of in front of Parliament, which arrived on the Monday and was passed on the Wednesday. And that sort of pace of change never happened. You know, a bill's normally months, if not years, to come through to enact. So we've had to move really quickly. We've had to move really quickly to listen to our members, to what the challenges are, to what the difficulties are. But we've had to move really quickly to ensure that government's aware of those. And we've had some successes in terms of planning. For example, the Act needed to include the ability to shift timescales to ensure that planning didn't time out, and to ensure that nobody was disadvantaged by the shutdown period. We've advised around using rates as a tool and a mechanism to provide relief. Building standards, we've Registers of Scotland closed down. There's a massive issues there, and we had to engage with the Law Society and with others to try and ensure that we could get through that. So in this period, we've really been working hard to ensure that no member is disadvantaged, to ensure that the market can continue, and to ensure that we can try and get back up to speed as quickly as possible when we come through this. So rather than looking at medium term and long term, I think what happens medium term and long term will be defined by what happens in the short term. And in the short term, it's our focus to just try and ensure that whatever happens now is giving our industry the best chance to get up and get running, and to ensure the minimum disruption possible. And in order to do that, we focused on three areas, really. We focused on the investor, and that includes the investor, the owner, and that'll look at the finance, landlord concerns, rental incomes and the like. We've looked at the developer, and that bucket, if you like, contains planning and building standards, but it also looks at construction industry and getting that back up and running and how that might work. And the third bucket, if you like, that we're focusing on is the occupier. And that would include looking at issues around property management, around maintenance, health and well-being issues, but also the wider societal considerations of getting back to work and social distancing and so on. So really, as an organisation, those three, the investor, the developer and the occupier, those three categories are where we're focusing our attention to try and ensure that we don't miss anything of a member concern, or we don't miss anything that Scottish Government are trying to deal with, which would disadvantage our industry. And if we can give our industry the best chance possible to get up and running, to get back through this, then that will give us better prospects in the medium to long term.
Okay, that was great. Thanks very much. Really, really interesting. And I think personally, you're dead right. The way we're dealing with things now has to kind of set the foundations for the future. And SPF are tackling it a holistic way, investor, developer, occupier. So that's really interesting. I wonder if any of the other panelists have got anything to comment on what Robin said. No, okay. So we're going to Sarah now. So Sarah, if you could jump in. That would be great, thank you.
Thanks, Gillian. Thanks. I just want to say, hope everyone's keeping well and getting through this as best as we can. We're all, as you said, kind of always all in the same boat. So hope everyone mentally is dealing with it well. As you mentioned, Gillian, my background, I'm an associate in the agency team in the Glasgow office, dealing primarily with offices in the city centre and out of town. I think Robin touched upon it. You know, the immediate effect for us is that our day-to-day job, a lot of it involves doing viewings and engaging with occupiers and landlords on a daily basis. We obviously, given the lockdown, don't have the ability to go out and do viewings, so it's adapting to that and putting means in place to how we overcome that in the medium and long term. We obviously, there's been a turn down in the number of viewings and immediate requirements in the market, but there's one positive thing to note is that those occupiers with lease events 2022 or 2021 and 22 and beyond, we're still engaging on them. You know, we're still progressing with legals and we're still trying to get deals done, which is positive. Obviously, on a shorter term, more time precious basis, it's a bit more difficult given getting contractors and fit outs up and running, but it is there. And Robin touched upon it, just dealing with rents. Obviously we do the quarterly dates, and certainly our management colleagues have been dealing with that a lot over the last number of weeks, as you can imagine. But I think the key message is that with this COVID-19, it's almost bringing a wee bit of humanity back into property. So we're advising landlords and occupiers that we need to work together to overcome this, and is that changing from quarterly rents to monthly rents, and it's all about means to help people get through this and get out the other side. I think from a personal standpoint, working from home, I think this is week 4 for me, I believe, so it's all a blur now. I think we're coping all right, and I think everyone is, and we're adapting. As human beings, we are pretty adaptive to what we're faced with. But I think, I think I've said to you about a week or so ago, Gillian, I think we're all social beings, and we miss that interaction. Certainly I miss it in the office, and the energy that you buzz off. And if you've got an issue or a problem, it's always easier to share that with someone and see it from a different angle and come back from that. I think if you're not, you don't use strict routines, you can suffer a wee bit mentally and physically. I know I've had to put a lock on the fridge anyway to stop myself walking to it all the time. But I think, you know, every person I've spoken to over the last 4 or 5 weeks, be that landlord, occupier, front, or a colleague or a family member, they're all missing the office, which is great. And that's, and for me, that, you know, what COVID-19 will do is probably it makes the office environment even more relevant than it's ever been before. I think what this experience will do is it'll bring about almost an acceleration of design trends that we've already been seeing as part of the BCO and as part of occupier and landlord markets, and it'll obviously speed that up and encourage more to come forward. And I think both on a physical and cultural level, be that on a landlord and occupier basis as well. So the key message from my point of view is that I'm desperate to get back to the office. Don't know about anyone else.
Yeah, it's you and me both, I think. Yeah. Do you think there's any, some of the viewings, are there any viewings happening virtually? So has the ability to have Revit models of buildings be brought to life, has that stepped up at all?
We had a pretty good conversation a few weeks ago about doing this pre-lockdown, and we had a couple of people out, and we do have a lot of video fly-throughs and things like that. It's become a wee bit more tricky now that you can't get people on site, and we don't want to put pressure on people to do things that they shouldn't or don't want to do. But you are right, over the last week or so we've been exploring 3D renders of space plans, and you know, using different models that you can send out. And I think from our point of view, it's being ready to respond as soon as the market comes back to some sort of normality, be that a new normal. But I think going forward, yeah, you'll probably see a lot more virtual tours. People on the ground, probably Indigenous occupiers, can potentially do it in groups or solitary viewings, but people that are potentially making the decisions elsewhere around the world will see the benefit of virtual tours, definitely.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much. Moving on to Stephen now.
Thanks, Gillian. Morning, everyone. Hope everybody's well. I'm not sure, Sarah, that there was a little bit of humanity in property, just a little bit. But it brings on to some stuff I know Robin's talked about in the past. There's a real opportunity for real estate to do what the BPF and SPF kicked off about a year ago about redefining real estate, which is the need for the property industry to dispel the myth that there perhaps isn't as much humanity in there, and this is a really good opportunity for the market to do that. I guess as some people know, I wear a developer hat predominantly, but we've got an extensive existing portfolio with about 330 businesses in it, employing about 18,000 people. So it's pretty sizable. So the short term for us has been how we support our occupier network. And I think we're doing what most others are doing, and hopefully most others are doing, and that's addressing short-term cash flow impact for businesses. Thankfully, we're not exposed to retail, but it really doesn't matter what sector you're in just now, you are being affected to a greater or lesser extent. Surprisingly for me, and in some ways a little bit disappointingly, is that we proactively wrote to all of our SME occupiers, which make up the vast majority of our portfolio, proactively offering support, signposting them to the existing support that's there. But interestingly, it's been the corporate occupiers that were the first to come back seeking financial support. And in some cases, some of those corporate occupiers who you would not expect to seek financial support and probably don't need it to the same extent as others. So it's been a bit of a surprise. I think we should just take a moment to, I guess, acknowledge not just the work that people like SPF and the Chambers of Commerce and others are doing, but I think the speed in which the government responded to the COVID-19 crisis. And yes, there are gaps in funding support, and yes, some of it's not been right in the lobbying through SPF and others on support of that. But I guess the significant support that the government at both UK and Scotland level have delivered will stop this being even more horrendous than it potentially will be from a financial point of view. So we have to acknowledge that. I think in terms of the other protagonists in it, we have to say, and I'm not sure if there's any bankers online, and that was bankers. There's a real opportunity for the banks here to, and yes, I forgot Andy's a banker, really, to I guess repair some of the reputational damage that was done at the last financial crisis. And we know from our own banks, a number of which proactively called us to offer support, not because they thought and they stated that we need the support financially, but our occupiers will. And can they help us, which in turn facilitates our ability to help our buyers. And that proactive approach is not surprising, but it's very, very welcomed. And we can clearly see the banks are working flat out at trying to deliver the various government schemes. One of my other real concerns in the short term is the construction industry. And I know you touched on that, Gillian. If you look at not just the Fraser Allender Institute information that you sent around, where there's a pretty pessimistic view, I have to say, on impact to the Scottish economy, on average 20 to 25% from memory. But construction, interestingly, is 40 to 50%, so it's double that. There's some other interesting stats in there about the real estate services. Real estate make up, I think, 12.4% of the 76% of the service industry that impacts our GDP. So effectively, in that basis, that's circa 10% of our GDP is through real estate services. And we will all know that they are being hit and decimated in some cases. But I think for construction specifically, we have to be mindful that the margins operated by our construction supply chain, especially our smaller subcontractors, are very, very thin, and they have effectively been turned off. Whereas we've had a different situation in the rest of the UK, where the UK government were content to allow construction to continue. I think, unfortunately, the lockdown, and even if we're positively going to come out of a lockdown from a construction perspective in 3 to 4 weeks, there will be significant casualties in that period, even with the government financial support. I think if the lockdown extends from a construction point of view to 3 months, then it will be catastrophic. And I'm trying not to scaremonger here, and I'm specifically saying this in relation to construction. So for us, we're working hard with our supply chain, who we're very close to as a main contractor, to see what we can do to support them through that process. Because if we don't support them and we don't all do more collectively, we aren't going to have a Scottish construction industry, or it will be certainly a very different place to where it is now. One of the things I think we're, and certainly I will need to do, and as well others, and this was mentioned a couple of years ago, I think again through the BPF, is a need for us all to digitally upskill. Working from home is very different from working in the office, and not just the explosion of online and Teams and everything else, but just the way that we operate. So there's certainly some short-term lessons. I'll maybe keep my medium-term stuff for later on, Gillian, when we get into a bit of the debate later. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions on the death of the offices, which I know that I've got some views on. I know Andy's got some views as well. There's some plus and minuses of that, and also serviced office space, but I'm happy to come back to that later on.
Great, thanks very much. Yeah, thank you. I know lots of food for thought there, Stephen. Thank you. Angela, you're up next.
Hi everyone. I think in the short term, what we're really speaking to our clients about is first of all sort of operational issues and business continuity, and that's really what's focusing their attention just now. You know, we're expecting this sort of phased, gradual sort of return to the office, and what does that look like? And we've seen our FM teams begin to look at, you know, in an office, if you've got your single point of entry, is there technologies such as your sort of body temperature detection systems, antivirus entry systems, and then as people get back to the office, how people can incorporate sort of no-touch elements, because there's going to be this huge focus on hygiene. So in the short term, our clients are really focused on just operational issues, and the other corporate real estate decisions slightly falling down on the priority list. And people are really focusing on cost. And again, where can cost savings be made in the short term, whether that be through looking at building energy, whether that be looking at, you know, the services going into a building and the impacts on service charges, if there's a sort of skeleton staff in those buildings which are on the remaining open. Our rating team, I think, put in over 5,000 appeals. So cost and operations are really what's focusing our minds in the short term.
Anything to say about the medium to long, or do you want to save that till later?
Yeah, I think the key question we were being asked, similar to what Stephen said, is remote working going to increase? What impact does that have on sort of occupiers in the space they require? What does it mean for demand? And that's the key question we're being asked all the time just now.
Good. Okay, thank you. So Andy, last but not least.
Hi there, everyone. And yeah, as everyone else has said, I'll say it as well, stay safe and keep staying safe. So Stephen mentioned the word bankers. So just to outline a little bit, I'm not a banker, I'm a property person, I'm a subject matter expert working for a bank. So I can't say I'm a banker, but the NatWest Group, RBS, Ulster Bank, NatWest, Coutts, Adam & Co, etc. Are certainly holding up their end of the bargain at the moment. We're very aware of what happened in 2008, and we've got new chief exec in Alison Rose, who is also out there talking the talk and walking the talk. And the announcement last week that 75% of all UK funding coming out of the banking industry was coming from NatWest Group certainly underlines the 24/7 operation that we've got, supporting the funding, the debt management, the fraud, you name it, whether it's personal banking, corporate banking, small business banking, and getting the support and the packages that come in from the government and from the banks, getting it out there. So It's a massive, massive operation. And our frontline staff in our branches and also our relationship managers are working absolutely horrendous hours to get those packages out there to support business and keep the show on the road. So hats off to them. They're working under amazingly difficult conditions as well. Those miles and miles and miles of filing that we all have in our offices aren't accessible because they're not working in their offices, they're working from home. So doing it all and doing it in a new way and rewriting the book on risk and risk appetite at the same time, working with the prudential authorities and all the rest of it, is all happening at speed so that the money gets out there. So that's one note on the banking bit. On the occupier bit, the way we're probably looking at it is pre-vaccination and post-vaccination. And those are going to be two different worlds. So we're currently in pre-vaccination. And as social isolation, the social isolation that we're all working from home or whatever, as that gets lifted, what will still be required to work safely, commute safely, collaborate safely, whilst we're not vaccinated. And then post-vaccination, if the working from home dial was somewhere around about 30% and it swung around to 80%, 90% working from home at the moment, because we still need to remember that actually, certainly within the bank, we've got people who just cannot work from home because they might have, it might be their childcare, it might be their home setup, they might be in shared accommodation. We've had stories of staff sitting on the end of the bed working off an ironing board as a desk, right? Because they're just not set up to work from home. Now we can put in a whole range of packages and support to enable them to work from home, but we will still have across the large corporate organizations a number of people who just can't do it. But so I think, yeah, pre-vaccination, I think there will be, where the bank was, the direction the bank were going in, we have very, very healthy utilization figures of our offices. So we were, in our main offices, we're probably pre-COVID, we were looking at round about 80% utilization of our desks. And we were actually putting in a number of transformation projects to move that up towards 90% in Dublin, Belfast, Bristol, London, Edinburgh, Manchester, etc. Because real estate costs us a lot of money and we want to make sure that we use it really, really well. That's now been probably blown up because pre-vaccination and with social distancing, probably the best you're going to get out of any office is around about 30%. Okay, someone can argue whether it might be 40, but it's not. It's going to be 30, 40%. That's if people want to commute. So will people be in Glasgow be jumping on the Clockwork Orange? Will they be jumping on public transport? Will they be jumping on the tube in London? I don't think there will be. That's my personal take. I just don't think there will be, because I don't think until you know, if you look at some of the pictures on the TVs of whether it's Spain or Italy or wherever, where they're slowly releasing it, you're not seeing it crowded, and see how that builds up. But it's masks for everyone and all the rest of it. So how that works, I don't know. I think the future of the office is still there. So Gillian at the beginnings talked about this is the first BCO banter call, and we need banter, we need fun, we need to socialise. I think everyone else has talked about it as well. So I think there is, and you can only do so much on Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever, but people like to go to the pub, they like to go to football matches, they like to go to the cinema, they like to share experiences, they like to socialise. I think all of that is there, and I think that will return to the office. But I think it's going to be a long drawn out period and process to get back anywhere near where we were, say, in January 2020. It's going to take a long, long time. And I still think, if certainly from the bank's point of view, we probably had about 60% of people mobilised to work from home. Our biggest working from home population was during the Beast from the East, where we had round about 20,000 logging in online. We're now at 48,000 heading for 50,000 online, and we're going to get to round about our customer contact people have been the kind of, they're the most difficult on technology to get online with call recording and all the other things that we need to enable them to be able to do from home. But that is being mobilized in the hundreds now every day, and has been, and there's been some amazing innovations with technology to enable us to do that. Things that we thought would take weeks or months or years have happened in days. So that technology boost is still there. So the whole kind of technologies working with property to enable flexible working is still there. And inside the bank, we're totally absolutely looking at what the future of working from home is. And we've got work streams now looking in May, they'll be reporting up to board on what do we need to seriously be looking at for working from home policies, the technology investment, the working from home investment, so that you know, because it will become a differentiator in the market of attracting and retaining staff on what your working from home policy is going to be. So it's a long road. Summarize, it's a long road. There is definitely 2 phases, we think anyway, pre-vaccination and post-vaccination. The office will come back, and fun will come back to all our agendas as well.
And is there any, are there any thoughts about when a vaccine is going to appear? Is it going to be this time next year?
Well, we all read the news, don't we? So we can only say what's in the news. I think the earliest people have talked about it is the autumn. Mm-hmm. I think that's optimistic. I read one article saying that actually as soon as someone gets a sniff that they might have a vaccine ready to market and ready to go, they actually start producing it. They don't wait for it to be fully tested. They just start making squillions of the little vials of it or whatever. You know, whether it's a pill or an injection, you know, we don't know, do we? But there's a lot of folk to vaccinate.
Okay, well, thanks very much. Picking up on some of your points, Andy, I mean, you're one of my clients. We're working with a number of end user clients that we have projects that are in the fairly early stages of design. So we're still moving on with them, and we're still doing engagement with staff, but virtually. And one particular project which started in early January and we're now in April, I have to say that where we had resistance about working from home and resistance to agile working in fairly sedentary, I suppose, work styles like a contact center or something like that, we're seeing a complete shift. And one particular manager that I interviewed yesterday for a big tech firm said she had moved her entire customer call center to work from home. And 3 weeks ago or a month ago, she wouldn't have thought that was possible. So I think there is, as Sarah, you talked about, and Stephen, you talked about, working together to actually still, to actually make it work. It has to work. It will work. There's going to be some teething troubles, but the turnaround was astonishing. Actually, I've found in the early kind of briefing sessions that I've had on like 3 or 4 projects recently. So,
Gillian, do you think it's almost a recalibration or re-education of what true agile working is as well? I think a lot of people have wrongly viewed agile working as putting as many people into less space as possible, whereas actually true agile working is using the space more effectively and using different areas which almost create distancing in their nature.
Yeah, and I suppose Andy could comment on that, because what Andy with his team have done have created choice about where people work and when they work, where people work in the building. So that to a certain extent helps the whole kind of distancing, social distancing, and it's maybe harder to manage from an FM perspective, but RBS are pretty good at that. But I think you're right. I think the term agile working, you need to be careful with that too. We think it's about space. You speak to a tech guy, it's about how the tech guys work, scrums and all of that. But I think flexible agile, however you want to call it, it's not just about saving space, it's getting the right mix of space for users, depending on what their business is.
I think one of the big learnings, so there will be lots of people, you know, we've got 4 generations at work, and the youngsters will behave and want and they do different types of activity in different ways compared to the older baby boomers who are still at work. So you've got the generational change, but the big thing that's happening at the moment is people are working from home. They're working remotely from the office. So when they get the opportunity to go back into the office, they then have a big choice in what they do when they go to the office. And sitting at a desk and processing emails and making up PowerPoints and just doing daily stuff ain't going to happen. You're just not. Why would you commute? Why would you do that? Because there's no fun in it. There's no banter in it. You're just sitting there plowing at your keyboard as a keyboard warrior. So why do you want to commute and do all that when you can? So, and I think the whole 9 to 5 thing might explode as well. So maybe the offices are actually only open 9 till 5, because actually you can do everything outside of 9 till 5 anywhere.
Do you not also think, Andy, there'll be a change in actually our commuting patterns? So we might not have the typical rush hour anymore. So it's a delayed.
I think
people
that's
are coming into the office at different times.
Yeah, definitely.
And using the office in a different way. It is the hub, and it is where the ideas and you spark and inspiration comes from. I think as I was saying when I started out, a lot of these ideas we were already moving towards, so it has accelerated that, and it's creating that more work-life balance. But I think the office is still the key part of that.
I think the lunchtime will become the new rush hour. So I think folk could do a morning or an afternoon, but there'll be very few folk. Some folk could do all day, but I think lunchtime traffic will increase significantly as people choose to come in for a couple of hours, 2, 3, 4 hours, and then go home. And they might do it in the morning, they might do it in the afternoon.
I mean, just purely from a personal perspective, I've been effectively working from home for about 3 years now, and I'm very fortunate. I've got an office in the house that I can shut everything away. I don't need to sit at the dinner table. But what I've found in my working patterns is that you've got your core working hours, but to a certain extent I work when it suits me. So my kids are more or less teenage years, and between 4:30 and 6:30 when they come in, you can engage. You might get some sort of feedback from them, they might speak to you. Gone 6:30, 6:45, when they've had something to eat, they're gone, you don't see them. So I'm far more likely to take time away from my desk and engage with them at 4:30 in the afternoon, and then come back into my office and do an hour or 2 hours at 7 o'clock at night when there's nobody else in the house to speak to and there's nothing on TV. And I think that's how I define agile working, is working when it suits you and working to make sure everything else fits. I'm no less productive. I manage to do as much, if not more, than I've ever done, but I probably don't follow the same conventional hours that everybody else does. And I found that to be quite empowering. And I think what this period will do is, on the aspect of the employee, it will empower them and make them realise they've got far more say in how they work, where they work, and how they can do it. I think from an employer, I think they'll get an insight that, you can trust your employees. I remember when I started about 25 years ago, John Campbell at CBRE, CB Hillier Parker as it was. If you're working from home, you're waiting for the plumber. And it was a very distinct view that it's not productive and it's an excuse to do something else. 25 years ago, you move on in 25 years, thankfully. But there is, I think, with the trust from the employee, from the employer, and the empowerment from the employee, you can get so much more from your workforce by being a lot more flexible. And I think the office will reflect that. I think the only other thing I would say on that is that I think the office, yes, there's desks and there's workstations, but I think amenity space becomes much more important. And whether it's going out for your walk at lunchtime to get exercise, or just getting time away from your desk to have a coffee and that sort of thing. We've already seen it. This isn't new. We've been moving in that direction. But I think what this does is it accelerates a move towards that. And what we think of conventional working will change much more quickly as a result of this.
I think we've got to look at it's just different for different companies. So whether you're, what your sector is, how big you are, it's different for the corporate occupiers from the smaller businesses. And my friend works for an engineering firm, and he's not a junior, but they were still given a big lecture before they all went to work from home about the amount of trust the business was putting on them, which is very old school. But you will still have some principles like that. But I think it maybe moves on to the sort of health and well-being point, where if that is the environment that we're going to be working in, and companies are wanting to show their employees that they're committed to their health and well-being, what does that mean for office design, and what we do with the building, whether it be looking at the densities, the occupational standards. And I see there's a question there about, will BCO change its density sort of recommendations? And I think how do offices in the working environment help promote health and well-being in the workplace will be the sort of next, something that was happening before, like the agile working, but this is going to have more focus in my view.
Yes, I think so. I saw that question too, and I think it's a valid point, but I think it links to a couple of the other questions that we've had that were submitted beforehand. I suspect the density requirements of 1 to 8 won't change, but actually the mix of how that space is used will change, maybe with less desks and more amenity space. And one question, just Stephen, just bringing you in here for a second, you didn't get a chance to comment on I suppose Andy's session, and then we can jump onto the questions.
I think in some ways it's a bit too early to be definitive on where the office market will go and where the requirements will dial out. I agree wholeheartedly with Angela. I think it's very different for each business, and from an HFD perspective, I work really closely with our construction team. I work closely with our property management team. I work closely with our group CEO and our investment decisions. So we benefit wholeheartedly from being physically in the same place, broadly at the same time. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to be in the office 100%, but I think we are more likely to be in the office collaborating, because as a business, that's what suits us. I think anybody that knows me knows I've got a pretty strong work ethic, but I will categorically say that my productivity from the home office is less than the productivity I have in the office. And that's not because I'm waiting for the plumber or I'm drinking all of Robin's booze in the background. It's just by dint of the home working arrangements. And I'm fortunate. I've got an office. I get left alone. So I think for some, this is not a panacea. It will be different for different people, but there will categorically be a move to that. Will that move to home working and increased home working or agile working reduce the need for office space? Again, I think it's too early to say that, but there's a plus and minus here. I think people will use their office space differently. I'm not sure we'll definitely migrate to the Cushman & Wakefield have done an interesting piece of work on the 6-foot office and creating this protective around you, not just when you're sitting at your desk, but also your one-way systems you alluded to earlier, Gillian, as you navigate your way through the office. In a 10-person meeting room now having 4 or 6 seats as opposed to 10, as we try and keep that 2-metre social distance. And I think the reality is, I hope that's not the world we're going to get to. There's also some really interesting stuff on serviced offices. If I can touch on that briefly. In the short term, serviced offices, and we need to be differentiating between serviced offices and co-working offices. Co-working offices have been decimated, and thankfully we don't have many of it. So service or co-working operations that have month-to-month 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 25 desks have all disappeared, because they can turn off their agreement in a month's notice and they're not using the office, so therefore they're not paying for it. And I think sadly there's going to be some forced consolidation in the co-working market, because a lot of these operators will not see the financial impact. I think serviced offices are different, and certainly the stuff we do, either in town or out of town, where they are just mini offices. They're just an office on a mini basis, and yes, they're more flexible in terms of the term, but they're not month to month. So in the short term, I think both of those will be impacted. This is less so, co-working substantially. But the flip side to that in the medium term will be as people review their estate strategy, and certainly through a transition period from, do we need 100% of our space for 15 years? And what is 100% of our space today? It might be 100%. Tomorrow it might be 80. The day after it might be 60 as we move to more agile working. But we expect our business to grow. So we have to meet that growth and shrinkage through agile, and pretend a part of that. And we've seen the move to this before COVID-19. I think, as I've said, this is just going to accelerate a lot of the existing trends that we have, whether it's well-being, whether it's sustainability, or a kind of core and flex model for how companies consume their office space. My last little bit is, and again, the market's moving this way, but smart buildings, it will absolutely be able to empower occupiers to understand exactly how their buildings are being used. And whilst Gillian, you do lots of work, as does Andy, on spatial utilisation, and historically that's been retrospective and a bit analogue. It will now be automated, real time, and you will see how many people are using your space, where they're using, how they're congregating, etc., etc. And I think that smart building will also include automation. So, and again, as Angela touched on, the physical touch points in a building. If you think about, and I'll use our 177 building as an example, from outside in, you don't touch the front door because it's a powered revolving door. You don't touch the security barriers because your little proximity card will let you through that barrier and call the lift for you. So you don't touch a button in the lift. So you can get out to your floor in the building without having actually have to touch anything. And that will then continue within the space. And there's some practical parts of all that. We've done some good work in people not photocopying, because we force them to the printer to type in their code before it spews out the 400 pages they don't need. That'll now all be done by prox readers, so we're not having to physically touch stuff. So there's certainly an acceleration of the trends that are here. It's exciting in some ways. As you said earlier, Gillian, the mother of invention, necessity is the mother of invention. We are being forced to do this, deploying IT systems in days, as Andy said, as opposed to weeks and months. So interesting times, and it's certainly, whatever we're talking about today, it will definitely be different in 2 months, and in 6 months, and in 12.
Yeah.
That is, change is the only constant, I think.
Yeah. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left, and most of the questions we've probably touched on. The three that we got prior to this kicking off was, first one was from Donald from Reed Mitchell. Do we believe the long-term impact of the coronavirus shutdown will lead to occupiers increasing or decreasing the size of their office estate? And he's ignoring the potential economic impact of coronavirus and focusing on occupational issues. I think probably we've addressed that, Donald. I hope you think we have. If anything, it might decrease it, but the mix probably will change. And is that a good? Does everybody agree with that on the panel?
Slight decrease, yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think as people get through the strategizing phase, you might see, as Stephen was saying, in the short to medium term, occupiers might look at managed office solutions and say, look, this is how we're going to do it. The A team will be in this office, the B team will be in this office, beyond just physically removing 1 or 2 desks in your existing office. And I think in the longer term, you'll see it slightly just decrease, but Stephen touched on it as well, that we're exacerbating the trend that they'll take their core space and still need the flexibility to give that option to grow in the long term.
Yeah. Okay. The second question was from Ryan Broadley from Linear. What do we think the long-term effect will be on the private sector projects going forward? Will this be in the main a slowdown with projects just coming to the market at a later date, or a vast reduction in the number of projects due to the companies in financial turmoil? Now Ryan's from a contracting firm called Linear, so I mean some of the things you said earlier, Stephen, about trying to look after the supply chain and recognising the margins are very low very often in construction is one way. But if there's anything else to say about that?
I think we just need to look at the funding of the developments as well, and if we can get our rental levels not being hit too hard because we don't have the supply pressure coming through, then you would hope schemes are still fundable, but the funding side of things will impact, and where rents are, yields are, construction costs, is there contractors available, just the basic principles.
Yeah. Robin, were you going to jump in there?
Yeah, I just think on the question about public spending and public sector contracts, there's no question about it. The government, as Stephen recognised earlier, the government has spent big to try and mitigate the impacts of this. And there's two schools of, well, it depends on your economic policy, but public expenditure, and in particular public sector projects of large scale, can often be used as a tool and a stimulus to get us through tough times or to accelerate the market when we're coming back out. Flip side of that, of course, is that the government's borrowing so much money at the moment, can they afford to do it? And I think that economic policies, we'll find out as we progress through this, but I can see it being used as a mechanism to underpin or to try and support the economy. But I don't think anybody knows with any certainty yet as to what's going to happen.
I think it's fair to say, Gillian, that on the private sector side, whether it's occupationally tenants signing up for new space or developers doing new projects, one feeds the other. I often use the phrase, "I am but a vessel." We just build what our occupiers want, and if the occupier demand is dented predominantly in the back of a financial impact, an economy impact, then that will weaken demand in the short term, and then I think in the short term it'll impact projects. I don't think that'll be the case in the long term. I think the question will be how long it takes us to get back to normality, whatever that new normal is.
Okay, great, thank you. Phil Reid has asked the question, as restrictions ease, will everyone return to the office the way we were, or do you think this will turbocharge some health and well-being and agile working trends? And I think the summary was that yes, it surely has to turbocharge some change, and hopefully positive change at that. Has anybody else got anything to chip in there?
I think we touched on it earlier. There'll more than likely be a phased return to the office environment, and when we go back, it will be dramatically different than what we were used to, as Andy was saying, in January of this year. Even that you'll see more distancing. You'll probably see enhanced cleaning regimes. You'll see more signage as you go in that things are being undertaken. You may even see, as part of a kind of selling tool in the long term as well, that landlords might introduce kind of enhanced cleaning that is used as a selling point for the building. And as Stephen was saying, the smarter buildings will become more prevalent. We're already working on it in various schemes, and the more control you have over the individual uses of the building, it creates those less of those interfaces that you're touching things, but also it reduces, or it has a big impact on the sustainability of the building. It's running when you need it and not at all the time, essentially.
And I suppose what it gives the building owner and the building user is information on how they're actually using space and identifying fallow bits in their estate, perhaps, that could be used differently. So it's just all kind of grist to the mill to a certain extent. Now, Annie from PMP, thanks for your questions. Hopefully I answered the 1.8 density, 1 to 8 density recommendations. I don't think we will review that, but as I said, it could be that the overall NIA might flex and shift. And Annie's also asked another question, which is, are deals being completed which were close to completion before COVID, or are they all on pause?
Angela, do you want to go first? Or
I think in general, advanced transactions are proceeding, albeit maybe have some delay, but they are proceeding. Projects at initial stages have been put on hold or shelved, particularly if they relate to SMEs. And we're seeing a lot of our clients who are maybe looking at stay we go projects. The stay is definitely the preference in the short term, given the economic uncertainty, which is presenting opportunity for re-gears, as opposed to tenants just, you know, blanket looking for rent rebates. Having a conversation with landlords where the landlord can also get some benefit and the tenant gets a cash flow benefit.
I think that's it's pretty much the same in Glasgow. I think throughout the UK, just speaking to all of our teams around the regions, there are deals completing that we're already in an advanced stage. Certainly deals that we're working on in the Glasgow office, they aren't paused, but we're getting them to that stage, the almost completed stage, just till we get a wee bit more clarity on when contractors can get back on site. And the one further positive is that over the last 10 days, we've had in the region of about 140 to 150,000 square feet of new requirements in Glasgow. And now some of those are reacting to the COVID-19 and will be temporary, but the others are with longer term lease events coming through in 2022. So it is positive, and the sooner we can get back to a working environment, the better.
We should definitely expect a short-term issue, though. In the next 6 to 9 months, we're definitely going to see transactions going down. Is I think the reality, and that's not just looking at a Scottish basis. That's what we're seeing in the wider leasing markets.
Okay, I think so far we've got about 2 minutes left, so we've done really well, and we've pretty much finished on time. Has anybody on the panel got anything else to say, and then we can close off? Well, I would just like to thank you all for participating. It's been a really interesting debate, and it's really great that we can actually use this software to actually do this, and hopefully everybody calling in has felt it useful. I've seen the numbers drop off a wee bit, but we're still up to 62 delegates, which is actually more than we normally get to some of the research events, so that's fantastic. Thanks everyone for your support, and Camilla on the BCO2, and Fiona, who's been madly taking notes. This has been recorded, which is a bit scary, so and will be available online, and you should get a link to that. And Kieran has just said, thanks all. It's been a really good debate. Woo! Thank you. That's
Thanks,
great.
everyone.
Right, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you.